Even in that room when I was over there in Vegas 2 weeks ago with Alex personally, it's going to be gangster. I'm Sasha I've helped over 2,000 clients launch new e-commerce businesses from scratch. And every 6 days, we have a member of our community go from zero to their first $10,000 in sales. And I'm joined by Hamen, the head coach at eCom Capital, who's managed over $30 million of ad spend and generated over $120 million of sales for e-commerce brands.
The main pain in e-commerce is around profit, because you can get sales pretty easily, but getting profit is the biggest challenge in general in e-commerce.
The way that Alex talks about specifically profit as an example is like profit is an unnatural result. It's like it's not a natural outcome of a business.
A lot of e-commerce sellers, they don't look at that part. They just run the ads and just keep tweaking the ad. They don't look at the numbers that they need to optimize and even the back end and all the analytics.
Alex has this thing that he calls like the two stakes theory. And all it really means is
I think it's very fascinating because when you think about, let's say, if I was to attend the event, like the same event, I would probably not learn much, I would say, the same value. Because the thing is, when you don't see the moves, you probably, you're not going to get something because you're lacking the connection. And I do believe that Alex Hormozi is very advanced, but if you're an e-commerce seller coming to the event, you probably need someone to translate. It's going to be like, this is like what this means, so that you can leverage that element. And I think if you look at this session and you're an e-commerce seller, you need to watch up until the end, because this will give you all the, I would say, things that you need to learn and implement into both, your e-commerce store. And that's, I think, something that people don't know about. And when I look at Alex Hormozi, I understand like a little bit what he's doing, obviously, but I would think about, you need to, you don't know what you don't know. And if you don't have the expertise, you're not going to learn much. You're just going to observe it and you're going to enjoy the experience, but you're not necessarily going to take the value and implement it. And I think that's a whole other thing, implementation. I'm curious about what one of the biggest challenges for e-commerce sellers is probably, getting into sale, but getting also profit. Like what's kind of, let's say, the things that you would observe, like you observed, and you kind of give us in terms of things we can implement for an e-commerce store.
Well, I think just to go into that for 1 second before we jump into profit and increase in kind of like sales, etc. So I'm like, what you said is so true, because even in that room when I was over there in Vegas 2 weeks ago, and I'm going back there in 2 months, I believe, for a really intensive workshop with Alex personally, and then like 9 other founders. It's going to be gangster, right? And the interesting thing is that there were people there, and so like you see it in the room where like there's strategy getting shared from the stage, for example, or by Alex in the room, and there are people in the room that it's like they don't hear what's being said, right? And this is so clear because they stand up and they ask a question, and I'm like, that was already just covered. Does that make sense? And so it's as if like, they can't interpret or understand what's being said. And I think the main, I guess, like where this comes from the most is the fact that they don't have, or they haven't had as much exposure to as many different experiences. They have a very limited view of their business in the world. And so like all they do, it's like when you hold on to a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And they sit there with like one little view of the world and they go like, I just need to fix my conversion rate. I just need to fix my damn conversion rate. And then there might be a strategy shared about something that's fixing the problem way at the top of the funnel, but they completely miss it. And then they might ask a question that goes, perfect example of this is this. Fascinating, right? So we had our VIP dinner last weekend for the event, and we had about 13 clients from our VIP kind of attendees, exclusive dinner, amazing private restaurant here on the Gold Coast. We had fantastic food. We had some amazing chefs delivering the sashimi and all the incredible Japanese, amazing. And then during and after that session, I held like a strategy planning room. I had a whiteboard in there. We went through some things. And so one point that Alex drums into so much is the theory of constraints, right? Find the constraint and then obsess on the constraint, subordinate everything else that's secondary to the constraint, and then exploit the hell out of that thing until it is no longer a constraint, and then the flow increases, right? And I was sharing this concept in the room. One of the founders in the room says, how do you know, what the constraint is. How do you identify what to focus on? And it was fascinating because what I did is I went into this like chunked up version of essentially all constraints start at a supply level or a demand level. Everything, it exists there. Either I don't have enough customers or I have too many customers and I can't actually fulfill them. Most brands and most businesses have the former in terms of I don't have enough demand, I can't get enough customers at a cheaper cost. Okay. And I started at that level and then I began to kind of chunk down. And it was fascinating because after I finished sharing, there were 2 or 3 people in the room and they were like, can I be really vulnerable? And I was like, oh yeah, sure. And this particular lady was like, I was really embarrassed for you as you started sharing the stuff on the whiteboard. And I'm like, why is that? She's like, I had really bad secondhand embarrassment. She was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. He completely misunderstood the question and now he's explaining something. Oh, this is so awkward. And then when I actually tied it together and actually landed it, she was like, oh shit, okay, I'm completely fucking wrong. Oh my God. And so it was.
Now I get it.
Right. And so it was fascinating because like, it's exactly that type of a situation that people need access to, because it's like, I think it's this problem, right? But what you get access to when you work in and around people is people that can see where the problem came from, why it exists in the first place, and then help you to actually solve the root cause of it, which permanently is the solution. Versus being like, hey, just do this and say this one little piece of language underneath your add to cart button and you'll be fixed. Because it's like, that doesn't actually fix it. It's like a little Band-Aid. Make sense? And that was a great example. So in terms of just kind of like going into the question that you mentioned around like, how do we focus on the right things? How do I increase profit? And so I think the way that Alex talks about specifically profit as an example is like profit is an unnatural result. First things first. So it's like, if you are sitting there and wondering like why my business is not like crazy profitable and I'm making heaps of money, it's like, it's not a natural outcome of a business. Everything in life, the way that I view it is like, it will use and consume, right, every amount of resource given to it. I love to give this analogy. Like, say, for example, you've got a tree and you put a tree in the ground, and then next to the tree, you put like a big pool of water, right? And then the tree will just like slurp all the water until there's nothing left. It won't sit there and be like, okay, I've had my share. Let's just leave the excess there on the top of the ground. Like, it will just slurp all that stuff. And if you put more water there, it will just slurp it all down. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's exactly the same kind of thought process where it's like, your business will consume everything that you give it. It'll literally squeeze every last drop of every bit of cash or every bit of human resource that you put into it. And so I think like from a profit perspective, it's healthy to know that like it's not a natural occurrence that your business is profitable. You need to force it. You need to drive it. Also because the fact that like everything in life, the moment it is born, is immediately moving towards death, right? Every single living organism, every plant, every animal, every human, every business, it's like it is very challenging to be able to keep something moving against the grain, because life and the gravity of life wants to start something. It doesn't even want anything to start. It just wants to deteriorate and move to death, right? Which is, it sounds a bit dark and like a very morbid, type conversation. It's like everything.
It's actually pretty fascinating. Like I look at it like the thing you just mentioned. I started with profit, by the way, because the main pain in e-commerce is around profit. Like I know that. Like I've been exposed to many stores, and I know that being profitable, because you can get sales pretty easily, but getting profit is the biggest challenge in general in e-commerce. And this is why I asked you this question right away, because I was like, if I was to meet Alex Hormozi tomorrow, or even meet you in person, I'm like, hey, Sasha, can you help me? I'm thinking about like all the founders that I worked with, and I know their main pain is profit, is really getting that profitable sale. And you mentioned something very strong about, it's not natural. You need to actually fix things. And I know that a lot of e-commerce sellers, they don't look at that part. They just run the ads and just keep doing the things, tweaking the ad. They don't look at the numbers that they need to optimize, and even the back end and all the analytics. And we had stores doing 6-figure. They're trying still to arrange their numbers, like making sure that everything is aligned and looking at the accounting. So I'm curious about, is there, like, if I was to look at the analytics, is there like something that you would look at, particularly things you learned, like with the exposure to Alex, like particular numbers in terms of acquisitions and things like that?
I think I think the key thing to start with, if I just like revert back to the two biggest constraints first, is either supply or demand. And I think the thing, all that means essentially is just a fancy way of saying, like, do I have too many customers or not enough customers, right? And that's like the biggest, like, high level way to think about your problem. And then, so if, say, for example, you answer that question and you go, okay, I don't have enough customers, because, like, my bank account is quite empty, my sales are inconsistent, it's volatile week on week, it's volatile month on month. If that's the problem that you're having, then the only things that you should be doing, to the degree of like 90-10, should be marketing, sales, any form of offer development, content creation, getting eyeballs onto your shit. That's it. You know what I mean? And say, for example, you're in the unique situation like some of our clients who are selling through more product than they can keep up with. They're on pre-sales. They're literally like, I can't even keep up with the stock. I'm selling it so quickly. They're in the unique situation where they are supply constrained. I can't supply my customers quick enough with the product that they are buying. And so that becomes a little bit of a shift where they can raise prices. They can begin to, do certain things from like an operational delivery perspective to be able to kind of like make sure that the supply of those customers doesn't break. And that might mean working on inventory, working on like cash flow cycles, working on like payment terms to different suppliers, working on like hiring different people. That becomes the issue of the supply constraint. And so a lot of people, and this like chunks up to in the book Outsiders, the author talks about two different types of CEOs. There is a CEO that is the capital allocator, in terms of I allocate capital and invest into future growth of the business. And then there's the CEO that is the operational manager. And I almost see this as demand constraint versus supply constraint. Okay, the capital allocator, that is the CEO that is demand constrained, and they are able to take their skill set and solve the demand. They're able to invest resources into big picture projects, high ROI investments that other people can't see yet, right? And the other form of CEO, which is the operational manager, what they are good at, and it's easier in my view to be good at being an operational manager, because you can see the operations. You can see, okay, there's my inventory. Okay, there's my person in Slack. Okay, there's my warehouse. Okay, there's my SOP. Are they following it? That's a much easier, visual thing to look at. You feel like you can control it because you can see the numbers on the screen. You can see the fucking reports in the spreadsheet. You can see the people doing their things. It's easier to do because it's visible.
Do you think that when someone is starting their business, they start with that first level, like that you mentioned, with the vision when they're creating the product, and then they have to transition to operational because they're kind of looking to get into profit? Because I feel like some of the owners that we talk to, they have this challenge of like they need to transition and they're not able to do it. So they're still in that vision, new product versus operations. Do you think that that's kind of what's happening?
Very, very good question. So my view on starting, in terms of when you're starting, if you look at the fundamental constraint of when you start the business, I'm starting a new business. Now, I don't have anything to sell. Right, that's my constraint. I have nothing to sell to provide value to the market. That's my product. My product is the constraint. I need to come up with a product that's valuable, that's profitable, that's going to serve one particular market, one particular avatar really damn well in a way that can actually provide me with a good amount of profit. That's the constraint, right? Now, let's say, for example, you spend 3, 4, 5 months, you solve that constraint, you get a good product. And now you've got a good product that people might want. And then the secondary constraint that you then fall into is like, okay, so who am I going to sell to, right? And then so you have the audience constraint, which you can kind of solve with either paid, borrowed, or earned media. Paid, obviously, spend money on ads. Borrowed, meaning joint ventures, partnerships, collaborations, get some eyeballs from other audiences, bring them onto yours. And earned, organic. Those are the 3 ways that I think about getting eyeballs onto your stuff, onto your product, so you can sell that thing. Now, that is the main constraint that you should focus on at the level from like product being brought to market through until $100,000 to $200,000 per month. Your main focus is how can I get the cheapest possible eyeballs onto my stuff to arbitrage cash in, cash out, to get the greatest return. Then once you graduate beyond that level and you're at the level of say 100 to 200 per month, then the problem becomes product again. You need more product to sell those people again, to extend the lifetime value of those people and make more gross profit in your business so you can scale more ad spend to higher levels of the funnel to get colder and colder audiences to convert. Cash flow becomes a bit of a constraint. So you need to go back into the product mode and start to extend your product life cycle. Once you solve that particular problem and you've got customers buying over and over again or buying higher ticket items over a longer period of time, your lifetime value goes up, your gross profit goes up, and you've got more cash in the business. The fundamental constraint that continues over that period, you begin to get into the constraint of humans, right? Finding the right talent, bringing the talent into the company, letting them solve the problems of the company begins to become the sole focus of the founder. And the key thing is this is the most important thing throughout this whole entire graduation journey is that once you surpass, say, for example, the product constraint and you go into the audience constraint, and then you go from the audience constraint back into the product constraint, and then you go from the product constraint up into the people constraint, at each of those graduation points or at each of those levels, you do not ever let go of or stop doing any of the previous activities. They all need to remain. You must constantly remain innovating high quality, high profit products. You must constantly remain diligent with creating content that converts into the right audiences at the right cost. You must constantly remain on lifetime value extension. And then when you get to the people constraint, then you must constantly do all of those things. Plus you get the gifted benefit, here you are, sir, my crystal ball in front of your hand. Then you get that added benefit of being like, and now we need to solve the big picture people problems, because every business, every single business that I've ever seen, once they scale beyond like, I would say $5, $8, $10 million, but every problem that exists in the company is a people problem. Every single time. But you never get to that level unless you solve those other things in the right order. In the right order is very important.
Yeah, when you say the right order, it's really like when you look at levels, like any person listening to this, it's not like you don't see these like kind of steps. You just launch your business, look at tomorrow. You don't look at what you do, what's coming. And if you know what's coming, you can really strategize in terms of structure and kind of unlock faster these levels. And you know the ingredients, like you literally mentioned 0 to 10K, this is what you do, 10K to more. And as you progress, you have different challenges and they're very different all the time. And I think that as like you're an 8-figure seller, so you saw all these levels. Yep. And you're still looking at getting to the next level. So you're looking at the 9-figure levels. So I think any person getting that exposure would be able to use your own experience, but also all the things that you see to navigate the challenges. And I think it's really the highest ROI.
Mm. Oh, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think having confidence in the direction of where your business is going, from somebody who's been there before and they can see the pathway, it's like it's transformative. And the amount of people that I find and that I see that are solving problems at levels that their business is not at. And so you asked at the top of the call, how do we increase profit? Okay, so let's use Charlie Munger's strategy here. Invert, always invert. How do I destroy profit? If we ask that question, sometimes it's easier. Okay, how do I destroy profit? I spend money on things, right, that are wasteful and that don't produce ROI. Now, if we think about that, what would be one of the most wasteful things that you can do? You could take all of your limited attention, your limited resources, your limited cash, and start doing things, right, in the wrong order, because you're never going to get a return on those things. It's like, why would you spend money on that thing when you're not even at that level yet? It's effectively like taking your cash, burning that shit, and then seeing no return, and then looking at your cash balance in your business and being like, yeah, well, it's not looking very good. Well, no crap, because you've just spent the last 3 months working on stuff that you aren't even up to yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And the thing is, they're not necessarily doing the wrong things, but they're doing them in the wrong order, and they don't have enough resources. So I think about it like it's a resource game. Like everything we're doing is a resource game. So if we're looking at the risk level, that's the thing that if I was to think about any product out there is making money for someone, any product out there, like iPhone is making money for Apple. So, but can you compete? Absolutely not. Is that you don't have the resources. So for me, it's a game of resources rather than anything else. And people would look at, hey, I need to find a winning product. Probably everything is winning if you have the right resources. So we're looking at resources. So strategy would always be what you should focus on, particularly the orders and how you allocate what you have as a budget. And that's why in eCom Capital, I believe that one of the best things we do is a customized solution. It's not just you launch a business with random numbers. We customize this to your resources, to your capital, so that you're not making a decision that could affect you. Now, one thing we have, because we have one of our clients that actually, he sold out and he's literally right now doing pre-orders. And when I think about him, particularly in terms of profit levels, he is thinking about, well, like we're literally doing pre-orders. So he's selling inventory that we don't have with profit. But I was thinking about, well, if I was to optimize profit, would you think about in that particular case, I'm just thinking about it right now, would you optimize it around more kind of like building cash, or is it going to be more around the levels of profit? If I was just to think about that scenario, I'm curious about your view on it.
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess it just depends. Like, it depends on the numbers. Like I know the client that you're talking about, and I think in his case, there's no, it's not like the return. Because
I was telling him
the return on cash.
I was telling him
is not low. Like the return on cash at the moment is really quite high, and so I think it's like, if you look at the business economics, it almost doesn't make sense to do anything else except for continue pushing more volume. You know what I mean? It's like,
because I was thinking about this, like in terms of our profit optimization, and you have, for example, in his case, what I literally told him, would a bank fund you, like his customers are right now funding him, would a bank fund you and literally give you some money on top? No, that's not going to happen. Like the bank would not pay you money, like give you some money as a loan, and they will give you on top of this some money on top. It doesn't exist.
Yep.
But your customers, when you're doing a pre-order, they're paying you, and they're, you don't have the inventory. So essentially they're funding you, and they're funding you with profit. So they're giving you, it's a loan with profit. So for me, it was maximizing, very similar to what you mentioned, maximizing volume as long as the risk is managed, because you want to make more of that. You want to build capital.
Agreed. I guess the only, there's an opportunity cost element to it, because like, if you think about just in general, I'm like, do people prefer to get the stuff that they buy sooner versus later? And it's like, every single person wants it now versus in 8 weeks' time. And I think, the client we're talking about, I know that his wait times and his customers are fine with it, but like, sometimes it's like 12 weeks, like it's a long time. So it's like, okay, now if I was to get that to you, say in 2 days' time, would the conversion rate go up? Probably. Like, I think it's a pretty safe bet. So I think that there is the element of like how much money is being left on the table in this situation. Like, it's still really good, and I think it's above average, like disproportionately above average, because the product's very good, the marketing, the mess, everything's really dialed in, and it works really well, and it's a high ticket product. However, it's also like, okay, so if it's at this level in this condition, what would it be like if we were fully in stock and we were fully optimized? And I'm like, we could be at like 8x, maybe something like that. I'm like, it could be so much better. Yeah.
Yeah, and think about this. Like, the reason why I was thinking about this was, Alex Hormozi, for example, when he did like his launch, like the gym launch initially, he was positioning things where he would get the money up front and almost like fund his business entirely like that. So I'm curious about your view on particularly building money that's like cash flow positive to a level where literally your business is being funded by the customers.
Yeah, well, I think it's the most healthy form of business. Genuinely, because what happens is, if you don't have a business that's funded by your customers, what you're really doing is you're artificially propping up something that should be dead. Genuinely. Like, if you have to go and get external sources of capital, if you have to go and raise money to bring it in, and this is obviously what big massive tech companies do, they artificially prop up. And if you think about it, like, if there was no way for those companies to get debt or get equity or get any form of cash to fund their business, it's likely that some of the biggest companies in the world wouldn't exist. Right? Because what they do is they either wouldn't exist, or alternatively, it would have taken so much longer for them to come to market. because essentially what they do is they compress the time horizon in terms of we acquire massive amounts of talent, we incur huge costs, we go through massive developments, we spend obscene amounts on marketing and acquisition on something that has tremendous amounts of losses for a long period of time in the hopes that the losses eventually reach a tipping point, right? And then we break through out of the J curve, and then we eventually get into a profitable situation once the unit economics balance. And so it's like, if you think about it from an e-commerce perspective, it's like, and I say this all the time because I've seen clients that they ask me, should I, for example, borrow money to sell more products? Should I quit my job and go all in? Should I go and get some like debt from like Shopify Capital? All those kinds of things. And I'm like, if you have experience doing it in the past and you've proven to yourself that you can do it over and over again, then it's okay, right? But a lot of the time when people are brand new and they're starting out and they have no track record, no experience, no understanding of doing this in this sequences, and then they go and get massive amounts of either debt or they go and quit their job and they remove their lifeline from themselves, it puts them in a situation where they're desperate. They make very bad decisions,
Yeah, and I think about that. Whenever you're in a situation where things are not aligned, you're not necessarily thinking properly. This is like the challenge that I've seen many times, even with like e-commerce sellers that I see in terms of coaching. They have all the numbers, but they're just overwhelmed sometimes where they don't see what to do. And I think sometimes when you're in that, you want to do more, but you don't know how to do it, or you don't necessarily have the right inputs, you're going to make the decisions probably in the wrong order. And that's how I see this as kind of the big risk in general. So this kind of, I would say, you have a lack and you're looking to cover that, but you're just almost like not thinking properly. So this is something that I look at in terms of strategy. So one question I have for you, and I'm curious about this. If I was, let's say, a founder and I'm starting out and I'm running ads, looking to use all the resources that I have to get to the next level, what would you say that I need to, like, should I get exposure to businesses that are doing more or the same, or like what's kind of like the thing that I should seek in general?
Yeah. I think it's really important to get kind of exposure and perspective. And my rule on this is usually like around about like, it depends on what size and scale you're at. Like, let's say, for example, you're making like $1 million a year. You kind of want to be operating at the level or being around people in the community that are at the next rung or the one after that. It's like 1 to 2 kind of jumps. And so what that looks like is if you're like 1 million, as an example, you need to be focusing on or being exposed to people that have solved the product extension problem and they have higher lifetime values. They've solved that issue, and they may just be in the point in their business where they're kind of breaching up into the $8 million, $10 million levels. And so they can also talk about hiring the right people, doing it in the right order, playing the right game in the right sequence. Because let's say, for example, you're doing $1 million a year. And what you do is you start learning from someone who's doing $40 million a year, right? So the problems that they're dealing with like, for example, management restructures. They're dealing with like middle level managers. They're dealing with like reporting problems. They're dealing with like infrastructure changes in the company, big tech overhauls. And so it's like, they can talk about what happened in the company when they first needed to increase their lifetime value and what happened with the product and the type of product and the type of margins. But what you will notice often is that the ability for someone to communicate in a very like, I have just done this versus, oh yeah, I did that some time ago. You notice it in their language, okay? And so when you're in those stages of, say, for example, $1 million a year, or you're trying to push beyond it, you really want to be speaking to or being around people that are at like that 3 million, and I've just extended my lifetime value, or I've just started to increase my ability to spend on ads because I've really increased the amount of like products that I have to sell to my customers. If you get around those people, it'll help you to go boom, boom, and you'll very quickly graduate up into solving the next layer of problems, which is obviously hiring the right people, getting the right person first, second, third, who are the right people, what do you look for, what gaps do you need to plug first and second and third. But it's like, that's my view on it. It's very important, the sequence, and it's also very important to make sure that like, when you learn from these types of people, like I said, if you learn from people that are like, you're making $5 million a year and you're speaking to someone who's like, making 200 million, like you're like, okay. No, that makes sense. I kind of understand what you mean. It's like, and the way that I think about it is like this. I get so pissed off when I hear these billionaires and these people and they say, look, just focus on the purpose. Like focus on the thing that really, it really lights you up and you feel passionate about. I'm like, what a load of shit, genuinely, because I'm like, that's what you're experiencing in the stage of life you're at now, right? Way back 25 years ago or 30 years ago, when you were just starting out, the sole focus of your business, where you were dirt broke eating freaking rice and noodles, and you were like, oh my God, if I don't make some money next week, I'm going to be out on the street in the poorhouse. Like that's the truth. And so it's like,
that was, yes.
Right.
Insanity.
Exactly. And so it's like, when you're learning from people, it's very important, the relevance and the currents. I've seen this so many times. We invite different speakers to come to our events. The speaker that I had there recently, very current, very tactical, very like, I'm doing this now. One of the other speakers, a little bit more removed from the company, happened a little while ago. And you could tell with the conversation, you could tell with like, this is what happened last week. I remember we did this. This person got fired. I had to move this over here. We had this containers, 2 containers. This happened. And the emotion is right there because it's happening right now. And so I think that's incredibly important when you're learning from someone. You pay attention to how they communicate about what's happening in their life right now versus like where you're at. It's so key.
Yeah, and I think also there's something that I see a lot. Like every business owner, they have a certain background, right? And they kind of go over using that background to operate their business. So they leverage whatever expertise they have. And we talked about this a little bit before. But for example, if you're good with numbers, you're going to stick to looking at the P&L. You're going to stick to analyzing your numbers. If you're good with content and creativity, you're going to be like, yeah, I'll look at new content. I'll just spend more creative time. And you're going to ignore most of the time the rest. And I think about this in terms of growth. Well, if you want to get to the next level, you need to master those other skills. So what's your take?
Well, I think the quote that I love around this is business is personal development wrapped in capitalism. And all that really means is, and there's a way to think about it like that goes like this. You will never outgrow, or your income will never outgrow your identity. And that sounds like really like woo-woo and like Tony Robbins and stuff like that. But like the way I see it is, what I define personal development as, like when I think about the concept of personal development, I think about people generally have a certain kind of like strengths in some areas. Maybe some people are like slightly better communicators. Maybe some people are like really creative with the way they see things. Maybe some people are like very analytical and data oriented. Maybe some people are like very diligent with like following direction, very precise, very accurate. It's like, people have general kind of like traits in their personalities that give them certain advantages, right? So my view of personal development is it's doing the things that you most avoid and you are most fearful of and you are most like lowest degree of competence. That's like what I see personal development as. I'm like, okay, and all that really looks like is like this. For example, let's say this. I'm a really nice person. I'm very friendly. I'm very warm. I'm really like happy most of the time. Now, what that means is, by extension, I'm going to probably have a big deficiency of holding people accountable, of having hard conversations, of being a direct leader and telling people what they need to improve, because I'm really nice and it comes very easy. I'm very charismatic. Okay. Now, where am I going to get the most growth? By being nicer, and by having a bigger smile, and by like talking in amazing contexts about like what people are going to achieve in the future? Or am I going to get more growth by being like, I need to have some hard conversations and I need to learn that skill? And it's exactly that same concept. So it's like, you might be an amazing like creative, and you might sit there and you post all the content, you do all the things, everything's flying, your creatives are going like wildly well, your audience is building, and it's like, but your cash flow projections, your inventory, the operations of your company is a right mess, right? And so it's like, where am I going to get more growth? Am I going to get more growth from just like smashing the creative flywheel over and over and over again and bringing more customers into a leaky bucket and having them eventually get unhappy? Or am I going to get more growth from being like, let's fix this thing, let's get some projections, let's get some good inventory reporting, let's get some good inventory turnaround times, so that as I revert back to my skill set of creative that I'm really good at, this thing doesn't like fall through the floor and collapse. And so I think all the growth that your business needs is coming from and will come from the things that you're avoiding the most, is the way I think about it. And every founder sorry, go.
So yeah, so just I think about this in terms of just perspective. Like everything that any, like I look at e-commerce sellers in the past, and I see that the ones that are really good with numbers, they avoid creatives. Like it's like the thing that they don't want to do. And the opposite is true. We have clients like with eCom Capital. Actually, one of them that I have like right now in my mind, she's doing 100K plus. She's very good with content, very good with everything. But when I look at her numbers, she doesn't really track them properly. She doesn't like spending time like looking at the numbers. So this perspective that you mentioned is so much crucial for any business owners, in my opinion, focusing on those like points that they ignore all the time.
Oh, I mean, like it's again, it's funny because when, not even if, but when your business plateaus and you reach a point that you are frustrated because you're not growing anymore and you might not be able to spend more on ads, the plateau comes because you're ignoring the thing that you know you need to do. And that's the only reason, right? It's like if you've spent the last 2 years or last 12 months on like developing amazing products and creating amazing team members and creating amazing infrastructure and organizing your warehouse and doing amazing things to put SOPs and processes in place, you've probably plateaued because you're afraid to get back in front of the camera and start actually taking content and shooting ads and like pushing front-end marketing efforts to sell the damn thing you've got. And equally the same is true if you've spent the last 12 months on creative and marketing and ads and all this good stuff, you've probably got a product that's like maybe okay at best, a delivery system that's probably almost broken, and then a cash flow projection that's like looking like a malnourished African child. It's like, we got some concerns. You know what I mean? It's like, we need to fix this stuff if you want to grow. And that's just the truth, you know?
But I think it's also normal in business. It's very natural to have that messy environment when you're scaling. I've seen this many times. Business owners would go from 0 to 100K and then start looking at numbers or start looking at other things, or email marketing, or even taxes. Those are things that they look at after kind of surviving that insanity that we talked about, right? Because when you're in the first level, you just want profit. Like, I want to make some money. That's why I mentioned profit initially, because I know it's the biggest pain. And I think you kind of align on that. And it's priorities.
The thing is, it's normal, okay? And the thing is, you don't want to go too much the other way. I had a founder recently, I recall on a call, probably, it would have been 3-4 months ago. And so we had a group call with our community, and she started asking me questions about corporate governance, tax in international domiciles, kind of like utilization of multiple entities in terms of like trust, this bank account, pay myself like this, acquiring assets via this. And I was curious, and I'm like, these are very detailed questions. I was like, which stage are you up to at the moment? She's like, oh, I haven't even found my product yet. And I was like, wait, what? I'm like, what's the exact requirement for you to know, where your bank account's going to be? Is it going to be in Dubai or the Hamen Islands in 3 years' time, and start planning your spreadsheets and inventory resources and, tax look? I'm like, let's just fix the product problem first, and then let's start to worry about how we're going to sell that product. You know what I mean? It's like,
yes, let's get some ads going. I think it's always like this is why I think these sessions, when you look at them, there's so much that you can take in terms of wins, and particularly avoiding those. If you look at the failures or spending time in using your resource, which is your time, in the wrong category, even doing the wrong order, sometimes that can just like change everything. So I would really think about this as, you need to look at the resource, like your time and your money, and allocate them properly, and also follow the right people, and look at the right communities. And I think that's why I keep saying this all the time. To grow to the next level, you need to be able to observe and also implement. It's two things, and learn every single time.
But the challenge to it as well is like, and this is just me being like super honest about this, is like, I'm very good at identifying these things about other companies, and I can see it very quickly and see what needs to happen and help to allocate like resources and a plan. I'm not as good at doing it for my own company. It's more challenging because you're in it, right? And this is exactly why we said at the start, it's like, why is it so important to be associated with and surrounded with people that can give you the external view, because you can't see. You know what I mean? It's like you're so in the trenches and you're so in the work and you're so in the details. And then so you get so absorbed in it. And then you think that like everything you look at needs to be, that fire needs to be put out, that fire. And then so you run around doing all these things. And the value that you get from just like, whether it's one coaching call, whether it's one, I think I had a conversation with Becca and recently, and she said it at the dinner. She was like, you know, that one conversation that you had with me where you asked the question about shipping and why you didn't include shipping into the COGS. And it was like this one small point. And I was like, what do you think that conversation saved you over the 12-month period? And she's like, between say $30,000 and $45,000. And I'm like, wait, what?
Yes. And that's a small detail. That's just like a small thing. And I think probably every founder, they don't even look at not just the realized, let's say, profit in the next 12 months, but also resource allocation. It's
Correct.
Probably more than 100K. So I think about it like that as well. Like next 5 years, how much gain do you have? Like that's going to be insane. Like you can look at millions of dollars.
Correct. Yeah, precisely. The one thing I probably want to, this was a huge one, and I think that every e-commerce brand can do a lot better with this before we wrap up here is, so one takeaway, one learning, one like high impact marketing focus type, I guess, like application from the workshop that we got. Alex has this thing that he calls like the 2 stakes theory. And all it really means is to sell at the moment of highest deprivation, right? And so as an example, I bought a product last week. And so as I was preparing for the event last week, I worked probably 15 to 16 hours a day for like every single day over the course of the week. I think I did like 80 hours in like 5 days. It was really quite intense. And during that time, I had a couple of nights sleep where I like woke up at 3 a.m. and I was like, oh, like I want to get at least another hour sleep more. And it was interesting because during the day, okay, after that, I through whether it was Instagram, maybe I was looking through like ad library, I saw a couple of ads and it was like very precise, right? Stop 3 a.m. wake ups. And I was like, oh, that's like as if it's speaking right to me. And then I clicked through to the landing page. And then on the landing page, it had like, you know, an individual that looked kind of similar to me and my lifestyle. And it also had like an Aura Ring hero banner. And I'm like, I use an Aura Ring. This must be for me. Right. So very quickly, I went through and I purchased a product. I'm like, look, if it can improve my sleep and help me to, I look through the ingredients list. I'm like, those are some good ingredients. It probably would help. Okay. Now, what I'm saying in terms of the moment or the point of highest deprivation is now in that moment, let's say, for example, I just went through and purchased. I'm very much in the state where I have the problem. I'm super aware of the problem. I found the solution to fix the problem. And I really, now that I've found it, I want it immediately, right? Does that make sense? I'm like, okay, it's hurting me, right? I know what I can do to fix it. I've found what I can do to fix it. I'm about to pay for the solution to fix it. Now it's like, oh, geez, I'm going to have to go to bed tonight, tomorrow, the next day, until I can solve it. Does that make sense? And so there's high degrees of deprivation right there. And so, look, in that very moment, had there been some, look, express tomorrow delivery, get this to you this afternoon for $40, boom, I would have paid for that thing.
Yes.
Right?
That's like this, yes. Leveraging it with the upsells as well. So yeah, in e-commerce.
And so it's exactly that. So it's like, what are the moments in your customer journey, right, where you can intelligently insert and increase lifetime value through offering products, solutions, services, add-ons, shipping bundles that complement, right? And the reason Alex calls it the two steak theory is because like the best waiters in the world, they will at the start of the meal, when the customer is the most hungry, they've just sat down there with the whole family, they're famished, they go, would you like entrees? Would you like drinks? Would you like mains? Would you like desserts? Would you like this wine? Would you like that wine? And they order the whole menu when the family is the most hungry. Is that the best way to do it or the worst? Every single waiter that does that will increase their average order value, their lifetime value so much, because like once you've got the food on the table, and I'm the type of guy where I'm like, I love a big steak. And if I was like super hungry and I saw a steak for like 3 people, I never understand this. Go to restaurants and I'm like super hungry and I'm like, how big is that steak? It says like 600 grams with a bone. How big is it? And they go, oh, yeah, geez, it's pretty big. I think that it should be enough. Like if that was me, I'd be like, well, how hungry are you? You look like a big guy. Are you pretty like it's an amazing steak, but there is a big bone in it. So you're really only going to get about this much kind of like actual meat. You probably should get 2. Do you think you can do? Do you think you could do 2? I'd almost challenge me. Do you think you could do? Oh, yeah, I could definitely do 2. Let's do 2. I would double that thing and get a freaking $300 steak on the table with 2 of those things. And then I'd be like, oh, my goodness, I can't possibly eat that thing. Let's take it home and eat it tomorrow. Let's give it to my freaking parents, whatever it might be. But it's like sell in those moments where the customer is highest depraved of the outcome they want is the solution. Yeah.
Yeah, I think any business owner that's actually in the restoration or like they have a restaurant, I'm like, hey, that's an amazing way to scale up, like literally double your returns right away.
Oh, absolutely. If you sell food to hungry people, sell a lot more food.
You're going to scale up. All right.
Very good. Very good. Hamen, any notes or any from some of the things that we've gone through today? Are there any things that you think from your perspective or listening to these things that you think people listening can implement, they can action, they can do that would be the most helpful out of what we've covered here?
Absolutely. So in terms of things we talked about, because if you're an e-commerce seller starting out, I'm just thinking about everything we talked about today. So profit is not like natural. So you need to really work on the numbers and optimize things around that. So it's going to be part of your journey. You need to do that. That's the first thing that I would position as like the thing to implement. Second would be learning from the right people with doing the right levels. Like you can't really skip the steps, and also you can't do things in the wrong order. So we mentioned that many times. And I think that's something really that a lot of e-commerce sellers, they ignore. Like, hey, I want to do Google ads. I want to do a new product or I want to do this new thing. And it's kind of like killing the business doing those things. I think that's something that I would position as a like massively like something you can leverage. A third thing would be what you just mentioned, actually. I think in terms of optimization and probably looking at the biggest pain. Like when you have a customer that's coming in and they have this strong urge to solve a problem, and you can actually sell more, you can price higher, you can add in an express shipping, you can even add something that, like an additional insurance or something that they look at in terms of their own journey, that could change your business entirely. You can double your AOV or your lifetime value doing those kind of things. So I think those are the things that if you implement them, there's no reason for your business not to grow and get to the next level. Yeah,
fantastic. Very good session. I hope everyone listening took some key takeaways and learnings from this. My recommendation is to identify the zone that you're in, or the track that you're in, and obsess and focus on that specific area until you solve all the problems, and then you're able to graduate up until that next level. The brands that do that, they scale the fastest, and they do it in a way that from the external, it looks almost like stress-free because they do the right things in the right sequence. Very good. As always, Hamen, a pleasure to have a conversation with you, and really enjoyed this one. Looking forward to another conversation next week, and I'll see you soon.
Amazing. See you soon. I'm excited for the next one.